Hey everyone, Dan here. We are doing Power Hour on Tuesday, June 8th. Today we're going to take a look at MARA, Marathon Digital Holdings. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So if you're not familiar with MARA, it's a company that mines Bitcoin. And so the thinking here is that the share value or price of MARA should relatively track the value and price of Bitcoin. So here you'll see the MARA chart on the left and the Bitcoin chart on the right. These are about the same time frame, about beginning of April through today. And so you can see they are relatively close. You see around this area here, there's definitely sort of a shift away from having as much strength in MARA as you saw in Bitcoin. And inversely, in very recent days, you see MARA coming up a little bit while Bitcoin continues to fall closer to that $30,000 mark. So I wanted to sort of talk through a couple things. One, why that may be happening, and then we'll basically do a full chart analysis on MARA and talk about some price targets that should be coming up in the days and weeks ahead, and how you might think about trading it all together. So let's go ahead and get rid of Bitcoin and just focus on MARA. I just wanted you to see sort of like that they were more closely tracking each other than they have been recently. And here's basically what I said, I think probably in the last MARA video that I did, which was several weeks ago at this point. We've been taking a break away from it. But what I said then was, yes, MARA, we've always sort of like posed it as a way to synthetically play the hype around Bitcoin if you didn't want to directly get into Bitcoin for whatever reason. And so the idea of it being synthetic way to play it would sort of insinuate that it will track the price of Bitcoin, and if it skyrockets, you'll benefit from the price of MARA skyrocketing, because the thing that they do, the thing that they mine, which is Bitcoin, has gone up exponentially. But what I warned about was also that MARA is also a company. And while the price of gold can go up or down, sometimes a company that mines gold doesn't necessarily follow that up and down nature to a T, because it is a company. And the other things that companies have are efficiencies, inefficiencies, managements for better or worse, share offerings, splits and reverse splits, and earnings reports and short seller reports. And so there's all of these factors that come into play when you sort of provide the theory and the excitement around Bitcoin, but house it under the complexities that a company brings into play, which are all of those things that I just described. So I would just be aware of that. And basically what we see here is the reason that Bitcoin was able to recover much better here in the beginning to mid May, where MARA continued and had this very slight bump up and then sold off much, much more dramatically, even into the teens at one point. And keep in mind, the stock was nearly at 60 not too long ago, and was up much higher than that even before. But basically what happened around that time frame when Bitcoin tried to make a recovery, more in this area, and MARA just couldn't even bolster hardly any green days at that point, is this. They had their revenue report. Okay, earnings, as happens, it's sort of like a hazard of playing this by way of a company, not just Bitcoin itself. They have things like this that can happen. Came out with a quarterly loss of 20 cents per share versus an estimate of 2 cents a share. So, compare it to a loss of 12 cents per share a year ago. These aren't things that are going to make investors happy, right? And so, of course, there was a big sell-off, and there was sort of just this shock and awe across MARA stockholders that, my goodness, at a time when Bitcoin is was recently near all-time highs, and is trying to make its way back in that direction again, this happens and thrusts MARA into this pit of despair, this downward spiral that knocked it down to basically a fraction of the price that it had been in the not too distant past. And if you look at the 6-month chart here, here's the run up to about 60, and I mean, it was like a heck of a bull run, and then has just been getting beaten down since then. You know, interestingly enough, this area where it got caught in this like $18 range, you know, ties back really significantly back here to this previous resistance and support zone that we see in this whole like $17 to $19 range. That was occurring way back in January. And so, you know, that's those are those very powerful zones, you know, that have sort of stayed intact for a long period of time through wild volatility and still sort of maintain their strength as support and resistance zones as time goes on. So, you know, hopefully Mara doesn't need additional support to the downside now that it is showing some signs of recovering again. But, you know, if it does, something right around this $15 zone should provide a strong level of support that you could look for if it's needed, something right around there. But again, like I said, hopefully it doesn't, but I just want to mention it in case it does dip again. My thinking is that, you know, this sell-off happening, especially as Bitcoin was kind of trying to recover, so it really sort of like the overreaction seems almost amplified because the product, if you will, that Mara produces was having a price that was increasing while the company had this bad earnings situation come out. And so not only are you selling off because of the bad earnings report, but also you're saying, I don't care, like the investor is saying, I don't care that the price of your product is dramatically increasing. I still say your company is worth less. Not worthless, but worth less. And so, you know, that has been a really significant sort of situation for Mara, just quite a beating that it has taken. You know, but I would look for more immediate support right about here at this 2294 level. So just below 23, you should have a good potential bounce zone should it need it. On the other side of things, you know, if you want to look for maybe a price target where the stock price is showing a bit more sense of strength and recovery, you know, that 2638 should provide a good potential bounce catch zone. So the way that I play these is basically like I would look for the price to go up, okay, and then and surpass that price target, and then I look for it to start to come back down and approach that price target. Now, maybe it doesn't reach there. Maybe I sort of say, okay, I think that it's going to bounce at 26.38. If it gets there, I'm going to start coming into this at about $27, you know, or something like that. Start averaging in. And then if it doesn't bounce there, maybe you have a very, very tight stop loss below that, which is like 26.38 plus 1 ATR or something like that, that allows you to get out of the trade if it doesn't do the thing that you think it's going to do. You know, but you can start averaging in that way and building your position from there, looking for these higher price targets, not as places to sell out and take profit, but as places to look for pullbacks and to buy into price strength. This is what we talk about when we talk about buying into price strength. Overall, you're at an upper price target from where you started, but you're buying a dip into that higher price target, assuming that it is now a strong zone of support. A few other price targets I would look at, 3078, and we're going to like chart what's going to seem quite high here, but it's really nothing for this stock. Like this stock to have double-digit red and green days back-to-back or nearly back-to-back, historically speaking, is like just another day at work for this stock. It's very, very, it can have these extreme swings, which is why I always enjoyed playing it, because those extreme swings, if you could time them relatively well most of the time, they could provide you pretty significant returns day over day over day, just from the volatility alone. So these are the price targets that I would look for moving up. I think you have that 1521 underneath should you need it. You immediately have that 2294 should you need it. If it can't hold that 2294 and you want to look for something that's not all the way down at 15, you know, I look at that 2040, and then of course at this like mid to low 18s for a possible dip buy if it does continue to sell off, and this like little recovery that it's trying to put together sort of just cools off. And this recovery is just sort of like a little bit of a consolidation zone. It's not really moving up. It's not really moving down. It's moving slightly up, but nothing that's really anything other than consolidating, trying to break this huge downtrend that it's been in. And certainly it has, like to the extent to which there was a downtrend line that had formed here, it has broken out of that, right? But it's curling back down toward the bottom of this consolidation channel now, so it'll be interesting to see, what may happen as it approaches that. But nice green candles coming into it at the moment. But that's what I would look for lower possible dip buy price targets, and then upper bounce zones that you buy the dip after it has already surpassed that price to the upside. And the theory here is that yes, Mara as a company, again, is going to have to continue to prove itself, that it can build a company regardless of whether Bitcoin goes up or down, that they are sort of strong in their internal organization, and that you can trust them as a shareholder. And so they're going to have future earnings, and that'll sort of like tell us how that goes. But this one, as far as a reaction, was a very, very strong reaction. I would say it's an overreaction, and so that's why I would anticipate you see some clawing back, even if Bitcoin goes down, which we're seeing right now, while Mara is consolidating in a slight uptrend while Bitcoin is going down. It's because Mara, the company, was sold off so significantly that I think investors are saying, okay, the percentage to which we diminish the share price based on the earnings miss was too much. And so even if Bitcoin is down and is going down right now, Mara's stock price as a company should go up to sort of get these two back in sync again. So that's what I think is happening. Let's take a quick look at the MAs, and let's do it on a shorter time frame. Let's do it on the 5-day time frame to get a sense of just what's happening in this sort of like trading week. I would still keep, I'm not going to draw new price targets here. I would still keep those with the ones that I just drew on the 3-month or so chart that we were looking at. Here you see the nice bullish cross finally starting to happen. It's been caught in this bearish trend for quite a while. It tried to break out here, couldn't hold it. So I would just watch for that again. It definitely has these runs where it tries to break out, everything turns bullish, but then it gets drawn back together, and when it unwinds in a bearish fashion and sells out again. So if you see a nice bullish cross here and maybe it runs up into the mid-20s or even high 20s tomorrow, I'd be careful and look for a pullback of any sort that sort of rebunches or bundles the MAs together again, and then may sort of unwind them in a bearish fashion. But they might unwind in a bullish fashion as well, which would give you additional strength to play off of. The RSI, of course, is very, very high, as you would expect, so that might bring some sort of like dip selling pressure into play. But you have to sort of wait and see. When Mara goes on these very, very strong runs, it does have a tendency to get very, very high in the RSI and then just sort of stay above 70 for a period of time, and then maybe make a dip down to about mid-range, 55, 50, something like that, and then run back up to overbought again. On the MACD, we have, of course, huge upswing. A few times that MACD line has touched the signal line and then has bounced right off, much like you would see price action do against a moving average. So interesting to see that, but you do see on the histogram area here, you do see it dying down a bit while the price and the lines themselves are going up. So I would expect us to get a bearish cross here at some point in the near future and sort of let that bearish momentum see what it may do. It may be mostly nothing, like a small one like this, or even like this, like a very flat one before returning back up. But it would give it some run room if it did take a little bit of a breath and then be able to shoot back up. But I mean, even if you see today, the recovery to which it's had has just gotten it a bit over where it opened. I mean, it's with this huge run that it had to put in, the thought that it's not like 10 12%, 20% higher than it was at open is crazy because it did have this big sell-off. So it's continuing with, bringing back the volatility, that's for sure. So it's always been a trademark of Mara, and it's just something that's going to persist for the longer term, I think. All right, well, that'll do it for this one. Good luck with if you're in Mara or if you take a future position, and I hope that your trading week is going well. Thanks a bunch for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.